we've all had those times where we try to share a story or experience with someone else, but get too caught up in our emotions to put our thoughts into words. We say things like, "You wouldn't get it." And depending on who we're talking to, the other person is usually able to empathize. It can happen when we're describing the stress around a test we didn't study for, an especially important game our team lost, or something more extreme, like family relationships and the impacts they had on our lives. We use phrases like, "You wouldn't get it," or "I get what you're saying," casually when sharing our experiences, but when it comes to controversial conversations, why are we so quick to shut it down? I feel like we as a whole often tend to close up as soon as we get uncomfortable, when really we should be doing the opposite. Rather than get caught up in our discomfort and avoid controversial topics, we should train ourselves to be open-minded and listen to others. Be able to realize when it's not about you. It's important to embrace discomfort rather than shy away from it. Just because someone begins to talk about something that may make you feel uncomfortable doesn't mean you should stop listening. In fact, being uncomfortable is usually a good sign that you're hearing something you're not usually exposed to, providing a great opportunity for growth. Like Nigerian novelist Chimamanda Adichie said, "The danger of a single story is very great." A single story is essentially an established idea about a certain concept, country, or group of people. It's dangerous because we become accustomed to this one fixed image and begin to associate specific traits with that image. For example, Africa. Africa is portrayed as a poor country with vast wildlife and starving, barbaric people, when in reality it is a continent with 54 very different, diverse countries. But because of the media and the way we portray Africa in literature, we view it in a very negative way. We think in a very negative and honestly straight up incorrect way. We also do this with many other groups. But it's critical for us to learn that there is always more than one side to every story. A major single story that we have become accustomed to is the one around Muslims. So as a practicing Muslim, I wear a headscarf, and my hijab stands for modesty, and it is worn out of woman's choice. She is not forced to do anything, and it is not a symbol of oppression. However, this is considered a controversial topic. But what is so controversial about my own existence? I remember when I first started wearing hijab consistently in 5th grade, and on the day we learned about 9/11, my classmates turned to me asking, "Aren't you sad Osama bin Laden is dead?" Now that's when I first realized that people would start treating me different because of my own choices. Now this doesn't only happen to me. The number of Muslims in the United States continues to grow. It's at a steady increase, and there's about 3.5 million Muslims in America as of 2017. But even though there are more Muslims in America now more than ever, studies have shown that 1 in 4 Americans see Muslims as un-American. But how can I be un-American if I was born and raised here? This is the only place I know as home. It's as if you can be either Muslim or American, but never both. This ties back into the single story concept. Based on what we see in the media, Muslims are constantly vilified and portrayed as terrorists when that is the opposite of what Islam teaches. Those terrorists we're constantly hearing about are anything but Muslims, and calling them radical Muslims or radical Islamists doesn't make any sense either, because we're still associating them with the rest of us. Now, hate crimes against Muslims in the US are at an all-time high, even higher than they were in 2001 after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, which played a major role in the vilification and generalization of Muslims. There were 307 incidents of anti-Muslim hate crimes in 2016, marking a 19% increase from the previous year. This rise in hate crimes builds on an even sharper increase the year before, when the total number of anti-Muslim incidents rose 67%, from 154 in 2014 to 257 in 2015. And these are just the reported hate crimes, not the microaggressions we deal with every day. So as an American Muslim, I am constantly seen as an other. I'm used to walking into a room, an entire building, and being the only one that looks like me. I often feel like my presence alone begins to make people uncomfortable. But why is there such a stigma around being uncomfortable in the first place? Is it because as a society, we've become accustomed to learning things from one specific perspective? We're used to listening to and learning things from the white male's perspective. We learn about European and American history from kindergarten all the way through high school, and we barely learn about every other part of the world. So when an other like me speaks up, it's as if no one knows how to take it and they'd rather deny it altogether. But even as someone who's always been seen as an other, I still try to see things from other people's perspective. I try to see things from other points of view, but I feel like people don't usually do the same for me. When I talk about myself, people are often quick to get defensive, as if I'm blaming them for something, rather than just listening to me whenever I share my experiences. This is where I usually start to feel frustrated and want to yell, "It's not about you." I'm talking about myself and the amount of ignorant comments I've had made towards me. One of my favorite ones being, "Oh, how are you Ethiopian? I thought you were from Muslim." There are so many more ignorant comments I've heard, too many for me to estimate how many. Yet this person has the audacity to tell me that what I'm saying doesn't matter or that I'm making problems where there aren't any. But instead of automatically trying to discredit me, why can't you just try to empathize? The fact that you really think I'm making problems where there aren't any is a sign of privilege because it shows that you've never had to deal with being personally discriminated against. I've literally had people stare at me with disgust, threaten me, accuse me, assume things about me, avoid entire walkways, and physically jump when they see me, all because I choose to wear a piece of cloth on my own head. People often want to tell me that what I'm saying is unimportant and are quick to discredit me, or they just don't want to listen. Either that, or they stay silent as other people continue to disrespect me. But this is dangerous because your silence conveys agreement. So why can't you just try to see things from my perspective instead of automatically trying to reject my opinions? You're uncomfortable for 2 minutes while I talk about a time where someone called me a terrorist. I live with that discomfort all the time. Many people that are also seen as others deal with the same kind of thing. But at the same time, can't all of us relate at least a little bit? We've all been in conversations where someone cuts us off or changes the subject. We get mad. We want to say, "It's not about you." Now imagine that, but the topic that people are arguing with you about is your own identity and a major part of who you are. That's what I deal with. Now it's essential for us to avoid the internalization of ignorance. If I internalized every ignorant comment that has been made to or about me, my own self-worth and self-esteem would be much lower. And the fact that I've learned to fight back against people's constant underminement of me is personally a huge sign of growth. I've grown, and yes, I still have a very long way to go in terms of breaking down prejudice against other people. I've realized that what I have to say does matter, and that nobody can argue against that. What I'm saying is this: speak your truths to power. No one can argue against your own experiences. Like Adichie said, single stories are dangerous. We need to work towards abandoning them and also learn when to say, "It's not about you." We're so quick to shut down when we're uncomfortable, but I think it's important for us to learn to embrace it. What many of us do not understand is that discomfort does not always have to be bad. I believe that by being open and listening to others rather than being quick to discredit them, we can open our eyes to the single stories we've become accustomed to and work towards breaking down those preconceived notions we have. All while embracing our own selves and realizing that we all have the right to present our own side of the story as a reality that must be discussed, and we refuse to be ignored. It's important for us to stop hiding behind our discomfort and begin to seek understanding. Thank you.